everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Today with Jeff Harman. I am Ella, Jeff's assistant. Glad to be back. Many of you know I was out week before last. Really intense head cold, but I'm all better. Thank you so much for your well wishes. And Jeff was out last week. A lot going on for him, but we're all good and we're both happy to be back. So today, Jeff is going to talk about the upcoming full moon, power-packed energies there, and also a lot of interesting things that might come as a surprise. So let's get started, Jeff. Take it away.
All right. Thanks for that. Yeah. What caused me to miss the podcast last week is my son had an accident and he had a very severe break on his leg and he had to have emergency surgery. So I was really busy with him in the hospital getting his leg. He had to have 18 screws and a number of plates put in his ankle in order to get his ankle assembled back together. So it's really been kind of traumatic and we're dealing with all that stuff. And interestingly enough about astrology, I actually said to him, I said, Aiden, you want me to check the chart? No, I'm just going with my friend down to Florida. And look what happened. And I looked at his astrology after the fact and I went, oh my God, I should have looked at it because he definitely had some very dangerous transits in play, especially in the Vedic astrology. So I always do electional astrology when people travel, and I never go anymore, especially in this crazy world, without picking an electional time. And I've done this for so many people. And it's literally the day you book the flight and also when you grab the luggage or whoever else does for you and heads out the door. That's really important because that commences the trip. It actually puts the energy right on it. And quite amazing. And you look at what we spend on trips with all the plane flights and the rental cars and the hotels and all the drama. Now, who wants to go on a trip and have it turn out horribly, right? So same thing with surgeries. We were able to get him to go in on a good day for surgery. So that is great. And the doctor told me, he said, the surgery went really well because I was not going to let my son go into that kind of a complex surgery unless the energy was good. So, and of course, Ellie, you saw him, you know what it was like. It was pretty intense.
Oh, it was beyond intense. And thank God that time was available, right? Because he did need to have the surgery immediately. And it was just luck that the energies were good on the day that he needed to go in. I mean, he didn't even remember having it.
Oh, yeah, I know. It was amazing.
When he came out, he didn't even remember having the surgery. So, yeah.
Yes, it's like good. Yeah, the anesthesia really worked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and even the doctor told me, he said, I told him about astrology. He says, oh, yeah. He says, I believe in that stuff. And he said, the surgery went perfect. He took all the pictures and everything. But anyways, thank God he's good. And that's why I missed last week. It was pretty dramatic. So I want to get on to the topic this week. We've got a full moon coming in here on the 24th, which is very, very powerful. That, of course, will be Saturday. Of course, if you depending on where you are in the world, but it's the 24th of this month at 4:31 a.m. Pacific time. So depending on where you're at in the world, you can extrapolate from there. Full moons, as we know, are always a crescendo of energy that was scooped up on the new moon. And they tend to be very dramatic. They tend to be intense. In fact, police forces, and I've worked with a lot of people in the past, we always see things get heightened during full moons. And this one is powerful. And the reason why, this is an interesting full moon. I always look at the fixed stars and the angels in the ancient texts that are behind where full moons are. And this one's actually happening in a lunar mansion ruled by Ketu. It's actually Ketu, Saturn, and Jupiter. Also, what's cool is the degree of the angelic force on this is like a massive black rock with a diamond in the middle. And the metaphor is if we work hard at whatever we're doing, this energy can bring us some great things in the middle. In other words, the rewards are good. That's the metaphor for the black rock surrounded by the diamond in the middle. So pretty cool. And it's a powerful energy. We're literally heading towards, on the 28th, which is next week's Wednesday, we're going to have a Sun-Saturn conjunction. Now, these are a big deal. They happen every single year. throughout history. You're always going to have a sun conjunct Saturn, but they're heavy. And of course, this will be happening Wednesday, right on March. Actually, no, this is February 28th. And what's powerful about this is that Mercury is also passing through the sun at the same time that the sun is conjuncting Saturn. So again, astrology never happens in isolation. You're always going to have an amalgam of energies going on. Nothing will ever be the same. This is a soul cauldron reality machine, folks, the astrology. It really, truly is. So this is very interesting. And then just 2 days after that, the sun is going to sextile Jupiter. Plain English, what does this mean? Definitely a very dynamic time. And this is supported further by when we look at the patterns in the sky, and I'm going to show this on the screen, you can see all the planets are in this tight arc. And this full moon has the moon right opposite this whole arc. And we're going to see this 7 planetary alignment, there's actually more than that, all lining up between now and April 8th, the end of the first week of April, where we have a huge total eclipse. Now, we'll be talking a lot more about that as we get close to this. But I always tell people in earthquake country, which we're in right now in California, always want to be a little more mindful, and people in the Pacific Rim, because when you get these tight arcs of planets, you can find the gravitational pull actually can cause earthquakes. We had a pretty good sized earthquake here right when we were at the Conscious Life Expo a couple of weeks ago, right on the full moon. Boom. Actually, it was on the new moon. And we had a really good shaker. And I looked at the planets and I went, that we got that alignment. I remember back in 1994, I was working on a music project in North Hollywood. And I remember looking at the chart and I said, oh my God, we could get a major earthquake. Well, we did. At 4:30 something in the morning, we got a huge earthquake. I believe it was a 7.1. Of course, the National Geological Survey lowered it down to 6.8 or 6.7 because California becomes tax exempt if it goes over 7. So, that'll give you an idea why that one was lowered. But anyhow, what happened is that earthquake was huge. And, we could see some more shakers around the globe with this planetary alignment coming up between now and April. So kind of be on your toes. Also, it's exacerbating weather. Look at the weather patterns we've been having here in California and other places. And what's going on is we're also seeing a lot of really huge magnetic storms coming out of the sun and sunspots. So again, this is not global warming, in my opinion. This is the sun cycling. And this might be a much, much bigger picture when we look at what's going on in terms of where the solar system is. There's a lot of theories right now that we're passing through a very powerful dark rift. And I've heard this stuff for years and years, but it may be possible we're really in it right now. I think we might have entered this back in the Middle Ages, in the Dark Ages, so-called. And this is, of course, a whole thing with materialism. And look at where we're at right now. We're immersing deeper and deeper into materialism the more we go. We had the Industrial Revolution, and ever since 2020, I believe we have entered into an extremely high-tech era where it is going to become not just AI, but high technology ruling the world. And this is where we're going. I mean, you look at all the things that are happening right now. So it's pretty amazing where we're going. And again, this is always making us stay in contrast to who are we? We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And the more we see all this technology and all this, growth of civilization, the more we start to see, hey, you know what? It really is separate from us. And as long as it continues to serve humanity, that's good. But when it starts to control humanity, that's where it's a problem. Which brings me to the next thing. I want to share with you a little something that I did last, Tuesday on the 20th. We went to see Rand Paul at the Reagan Library. And the Reagan Library is only probably 12 miles from our house as the crow flies from where we live. We live right up near Simi Valley. And it was a lot of fun. So I went in, and of course, he wrote a new book. And I'll put it on the screen. Good book to get. And he gave a really wonderful talk. And he was basically saying how controlled all the information is for him as a senator to try and get through and get documentation to prove that they know the coronavirus was not only developed in concert with the United States and China, but that it was released. And he, in his opinion, in the summary of his talk, was pretty much convinced that there's no question it did not evolve from bats or wet markets or anything else. It was a developed viral strain that was done in a lab. And of course, it was done in the Wuhan lab, and there's evidence that it was actually developed here and was worked on further over at the Wuhan lab and released. And he basically has Fauci dead to rights with all the emails and everything else. It's all in the book. And I encourage people to read it. And what I liked about Rand Paul is where he was and what he stood for. I always liked him and his father, of course, Ron Paul, who ran for president. But good guy, really liked him, very honest, and I think well-intended person. You know, he does eye surgeries for people for free that are in bad financial shape. He donates a lot. He's just a really good guy. And one of the comments that came up, which was very interesting, you may have heard of it, it was on national news. He was basically asked about Gavin Newsom running for president, and he stopped, and this was actually on national news. He said, "Never, ever let Gavin Newsom in the White House." And the whole room just roared. Not only was it making national news, but if you were in the room and you heard how many people were whistling and screaming and clapping and saying yes, agreeing to that, it was stunning. So, and that brings me to a lot of people have been asking, are they going to run on Michelle Obama or is Gavin Newsom? I really think they're going to try and get Michelle Obama to run, but I don't think she will. I don't think she's going to go the distance. First off, I don't think she wants to, even though they want her to. But I don't think she's going to do it. But anyhow, the bottom line is I think they're going to dust off Newsom. I really do. And I think Newsom is perfect for the Democratic Party because he can convince you that everything he's doing is your fault.
Well, I think it's encouraging that a lot of people didn't like to hear about Newsom. We call him Gruesome, don't we?
Yes,
Newsom, getting into the White House. Of course not. And it's great because these are people who are out here in California, right? And we all know that Newsom's out here in California as our wonderful, wonderful governor. So it's encouraging to hear that a lot of people are not having that or not going to be on that bandwagon. And I just wanted to say something about the book that he wrote. Kennedy also wrote a book about Fauci. I don't know if you read that. The Real Anthony Fauci talks all about COVID and what really went down. And Fauci's, it's pretty eye-opening and mind-blowing. So that's a good one for people to
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. You know why? Because I've been talking on previous podcasts about the United States has just completed a Neptune opposition Neptune. Now, to give you an idea how frequent that happens, that won't happen again for another 180 years. Now, what does it mean? I've been talking about this deception. And this has been in orb for the last probably 4 or 5 years. And it's really come to fruition. It just completed at the beginning of this month in February. I think it was right around the 3rd or 4th of February, something like that, or 15th. I forget. It's in the previous podcast. I don't have it off the top of my head. But the bottom line is it is subterfuge, trickery, and blowing smoke up your rear end. And that's exactly what they have been doing. And not only do we have, again, the border crises, the crime crises, but they're looting the treasury. And furthermore, we're seeing these same bankers backdoor fund all these other constituents around the globe, and they're heating up more and more war. And this brings me again, I've repeatedly mentioned this, we are in a Pluto return in the United States, which actually is really tight right on the 21st of this month. Is happening right now as we speak. So it's very, very powerful. And this is again, when it's completed, there's 3 hits, which will happen, another one this summer, another one at the very end of this year in December. We're going to see if we have an America as we know it, or will we be the phoenix rising out of the ashes? And I tend to lean towards there's a lot of good people here who realize just how bad it's gotten and where it's going. And I think if we're lucky, we're going to see the divinity come through and save this country. Because if it doesn't, we're in big, big trouble. Much bigger, I think, than we realize.
Yeah. Well, keep hope alive, they say. Keep hope alive. And also, I just wanted to touch on for a second, I love what you said about the AI and all of the massive technology takeover we're seeing now, and spirituality, and that has to come first, right? That has to come first. You look at it almost like we have 2 doors here. We have our spiritual door, and then we have the world, right? The world, and the spiritual door is the door we really need to go through all the time. And be connected with. And then the rest of it is just the rest of it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, because I mean, when we leave here, we're not taking anything with us.
No.
I repeatedly get questions about estates, and I see all the attorneys in the lawsuits. Everybody's suing each other, right? The American legal system, the finest system money can buy. And you see the turmoil, and everybody's fighting over it. And yes, it's important we have money in our resources and security. But when it's all over with, nobody takes anything with them other than the experiences and the consciousness that we get. And I think we're seeing a lot of what Hollywood has portrayed in movies like Terminator, movies like Blade Runner, and so many others, I, Robot, where this is really becoming a reality. I mean, it's interesting. Elon Musk, the guy who kind of says AI could take over the world, is busy creating AI. He's releasing all these robots right now. So, pretty wild. But that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thanks so much for this. And thank you all for watching. Have a great week ahead. That full moon hits us on Saturday. So stay tapped into that. And we'll see you next week on Astrology Today with Jeff Harman.